right, hello YouTube friends, Mucklick here, and we are back with testing another DPS support. That is a PvE damage dealer that's job is to provide some buffs, in this case, alacrity, to its whole group while doing as much damage as possible. And today's episode is on the condition damage Renegade, or alacrity providing renegade. Now, I have very little experience on this class, as with many others, so I immediately pulled up some guides from various websites. Up here, we have got the Snowcrow's guide to it, along with the Guild Gen guide to it, along with the Hardstuck guide to it. Most of them were very similar, with a couple of small exceptions, but in general agreement, they are all using primarily ritualist gear, mace, axe, short bow, with Doom, Earth, Geomancy and Torment Sigils, and Trapper Runes. This is the build. All three of them agree on the build and the same legends, that you get zero customization over these, so you don't have to worry about that stuff. Now, just to show that I have a basic understanding of what we're doing, I'm gonna beat on the dummy for just a second. So we're gonna hit this, hit F4 for alacrity, then we're gonna summon some cats, then we're gonna hit 2, and then we're gonna hit 3, and then we're gonna hit 5, and then as soon as we can, we're going to summon another cat, which puts us below 10 energy, and then we are going to swap, and we're going to turn into a demon. And then we're going to hit some short bow buttons, and the alacrity button's coming up, so we're going to hit that again. And we're going to just do more stuff. And I'm just hitting the 2 through 4 keys until we get below 10 energy, and then we swap back, and then we throw more cats at the thing. And we're at a mind-boggling 22k, which is about as high as I was ever able to get it. So we are going to stop there, and then we will talk about it. Okay, now, let's break this down. Every DPS support can be broken up, their job, their role can be broken up into 2 things. A set of buttons that they hit to provide buffs to their party, and a set of buttons they hit to do damage. Now for this one, the button that you hit to provide the buff to your party is just this one. You could literally put one of those water drinking birds on that button, and as long as you keep hitting that button, every time it lights up, you're providing alacrity to your party. Purely in terms of how easy is it to provide the buff you're in charge of to your group, this might be one of the easiest classes to do it with. Now, let's talk about the actual damage dealing portion of it. It felt awful. In fact, I would say that this feels second worst, right behind when I played Heal Alac Spectre. I will not be playing this again unless I have to someday. So essentially, like with any rev build, you have to learn the 5 buttons for your one weapon, the 5 buttons for the other weapon, the 5 buttons for your one legend, the 5 buttons for the other legend, the buttons up here, so we're up to 23 keys, and the energy system. If you're coming from any other class, you also have to learn how to manage the energy system, which is pretty rough. So in that, I had to boil it down because the rotation on some of the guides, like for example, here's the Snowcrow's guide. The rotation is from here all the way down there. That was way too much. I cannot remember all that. I have to look up every single one of these abilities to see what they are. I don't know what they are. So then Guild Gen had more of a priority system. In Mace Axe, you hit 2, 3, 5, and Short Bow, you hit 4, 3, 2. Hit these buttons in Kala, hit these in Malix. For me, that was easier to understand, so I tried learning it that way. As I was learning it that way, people in chat started occasionally piping up with random, like, oh, hey, you should do this. Do your legend swap before your weapon swap. It'll improve your damage because of your sigils, stuff like that. And I was doing my best to accumulate all that knowledge. I will say that even after absorbing all of that, I have never had so large of a difference between the damage I dealt, 22k, and the damage Snowcrow says I should be doing, 36k. Now, I always tell people, like, hey, if you're learning a build, if you can only do like 80% of what Snowcrow says, you're still doing great, that's fine. But I've never had it be this much of a difference. So that made me feel like I was doing terrible, to the point that I gave up on it. And then I went and tried a Power Alac Renegade build, which was marked as a legacy build, but I tried it out. TLDR version, incredibly easy to play, does way less damage, which is the reason nobody plays it anymore. So then I went back to Condi, and I started trying it again and trying to get better and trying to get better, and I spent a long time in here practicing and managed to get up to 22k after a ramp up period. Now after that, I joined a pug group and we did strike missions, and it was rough. The pug group had a lot of people making simple mistakes, but it was a pug. It was a pug. We did a Jade Junkyard, and like everybody went downstate at one point, and I ended up top DPS in many of those runs, and I felt like I was doing horribly. But again, I was comparing myself to the benchmark, stuff like that. So this is capable of 22k. I do not think the rotation is easy to learn. If you're playing Condi version of Alac, the rotation is pretty complex. Not as complex as some classes, but way more complex than others for sure. Like when I did Alacrity Mechanist the other day, it did more damage than this using 5 keys. And this one I'm using like 23. So it's, and then Spectre not Spectre, Scourge has a simpler rotation than this, but it's also providing barrier to its party. So this feels like way more work for less output than many of the other classes. Completely viable. It is 100% viable, but that's just how it feels to me. Now let's talk about the gameplay. One of the things that's really important for this class is you swap legends when you're under 10 energy. When you swap legends, you get 50 energy when you start. However, if you're under 10 energy and you have this trait and you swap, you end up with 75. So it's really important to do that. By the way, here's something really stupid. If I swap legends, goes on a 10-second cooldown if you're out of combat. Most skills, if you're messing with them, like you weapon swap out of combat, there's no cooldown at all. However, if I right click on this and assign that to that, it swaps without cooling down. That should be baseline. This is almost as stupid as the fact that when you are a Blade Sworn and you have the gun saber in your hand, your weapon swap puts away the gun saber and has a 10-second cooldown. But hitting the F1 key to put away your gun saber has an 8-second cooldown because it's affected by Alacrity. This is as dumb as that. I would love to see this fixed. That was really silly. If you're caught out of Kala and you need to CC, the CCs you have available in this kit. By the way, I'm just a small thing here, just simply because I was looking at the guides on Snowcrows and Guild Gen and Hardstuck. Snowcrows, if you're out there, this was the only page I could not find anything on CC. Like Control F CC, it just pulls up the accessory section. If I search for crowd control, that doesn't pull up anything either. Like I could not find anything on this page about like if you need to CC, use these skills. You probably should add that on that page. In the end though, because I had the other websites as well, the things for CC that you have is the 5 button on either weapon. Temporal Rift for Axe 5 does not say how much CC it does. That's a thing that ArenaNet needs to fix. The Shortbow 5 says it does 200 CC. If you are in the Demon stance, and I'm doing this the complicated way so it doesn't go on cooldown, your Call to Anguish has 150 CC. But if you're in Kala, Dark Razor's Daring has 600. Again, Kala's CC is 4 times that of the Demon CC. So if you are in Kala, you have a massive crowd control tool that I was able to do it in many of the fights. It happened to line up with Kala. However, I say happened to line up with, because once again, we've got a build where you have to swap on cooldown. Your weapon swapping on a rotation, your legend swapping on a rotation. So if you need that huge CC and you've left Kala recently, too bad, your CC is a quarter as strong as it usually is because you don't have access to Kala right now. Do you need your short bow because you got a red circle and you had to run away and now you're at range? Too bad, because you recently swapped from short bow to mace because you're swapping weapons on a rotation. So once again, we've got a build where it does not feel like I have access to my tools when I need my tools, unless I know all the ins and outs of a fight and everything it could possibly throw at me and I'm planning 10 seconds ahead. You're forced to use everything on a rotation and you do not have access to your stuff when you need it. So you're just kind of throwing everything. In terms of utility, you are giving your group a bit of fury with the Endless Enmity trait. This is pumping some fury out to your party. Keeping Alacrity up has never been easier. That's fantastic. Aside from that, like Demon Stance has a boon rip, but if you wanted to bring stability to your group, you've got to swap out Demon for Chalice, which would be a substantial DPS loss, but you could do it. If you needed projectile hate, you could swap out Demon for Centaur and bring that. And then you've got the anti-projectile bubble. Actually, you know, I'm saying swap out Demon. Maybe you swap out Kala. I'm not even sure. I didn't see notes on that. They might be in there somewhere, but I just did not see it. But yeah, it is an extremely viable build. It's a classic. It's been around for ages. Long ago, it was much more popular because it used to give Alacrity to 10 people, but you know, they reworked that since then. So these days it just gives Alacrity to 5, just like every other Alacrity provider. It keeps that Alacrity up easily. It does some damage. I was able to get 22K. You see 21K there before I gave up. The benchmark is the highest that they've ever gotten is 36K, but that's as high as I was able to go with it. It feels like a very complex rotation. It does not feel like one that is easy to pick up compared to literally anything else I've tried recently. It does have very high health because we're using Ritualist gear. We've got 28K, and yet on the only real fight I was in any danger of dying was Bone Skinner because the healers were struggling there. And on that fight, I actually felt sturdier when I was playing the Berserker geared Scrapper that was in like 15k health, but it was pumping barrier on itself. Because this one, like there was times I couldn't even use my heal because the heal required energy. Like, there was moments I could not use my heal button or my stun break. And both of your modes do have a stun break, but they cost energy also. So if you're really low on energy and you don't have swap up at that moment, you cannot access your heal or your stun break. And that's not something specific to this build. That's just Revenant things, and I just... Ugh. It was rough for me. It was rough for me as an outsider trying to juggle all this. I'm not used to having my stun breaks or my heals be inaccessible to me just because I don't have enough Duracell batteries. But I think that's it. As always, I want to point out that this was just a video of my experience trying the class. This is not a guide. If you like this build, I'll have links to the guides I used to piece this together in the description down below if you would like to check it out. I did not play it perfectly. I'm an experienced player, but I'm not an experienced Revenant, and this was just, you know, what it was like to me.